Hello everyone. I thought I would kind of like try to show you guys this pagination service that I built. And so what a pagination service is, it's like a page service. Like it will split your results into multiple pages so that you can just like click on them and like go to the next one instead of having this like giant list that you have to like scroll all the way down to the bottom. Like it looks a lot nicer this way. So what this basically does is it takes like a giant array and splits it and like into different sections of items. Like I set mine to split it up by into 12 different items per page. And then it repopulates like here, let me just show you. So what I have is I have like my entire array, and I'm getting that array from a cocktail database. Like you can search for an ingredient and it will send back like a whole bunch of like cocktails, and I added those to that array. And then I made a second array to be like the ones that are actually shown like 12 at a time. And so that array is like constantly like repopulated by the next page. So the first thing you have to do is you have to have your array. You need to have a variable called current page and start that off at 1 because you don't want to, start anybody off on page 5. And I had this every time that users like click to search for a new thing, it resets the current page back to 1. That way they're always started on page 1. Otherwise, it would have picked up whatever the current page was they were last on. And then I have this variable called show pages. And the show pages variable, array actually, sorry, it shows it's an array of numbers like this 1, 2, and 3 down here. And every time that you click like the next page, it will repopulate this to be the next like 3 numbers in the sequence. And what else do we have here? We have the items per page. For me, that was 12, but you might need to play around with it and see exactly how many items you need to show for your particular site. And then I have to make a variable called page amount, which that's something that my service will figure out for you, like how many, like what the number of pages that you have. And the reason why we need to know that is because whenever you reach the end here, like I'm on page 7, I click page 8, and it ends. We don't want it to keep going on forever, like because you will be out of items to display, and it will just be blank pages. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to assign this your empty variable to what this function returns. So this function is like what splits the array into all the different pages. And so this function needs to know the current pages that you're on, how many items you want per each page, and then you have to send it the entire like array that you want to split up. And let's see here. Where is this at? Down here. Okay, so what it does is it figures out like where to actually start that slice at, and it checks like what current page you're on. And since arrays start at 0, if you're on page 1, then it starts at 0. If you're on like future pages, it has to do a little bit of math to like figure out how far you are like into the page array already. And then the actual like where your array slice ends is going to be where it started at plus 12 more in my situation, or however many you want to show per each page. And so then it returns an array that contains that slice, like right. So that now contains like, let's see, now it contains like just a slice right here. And then I click and it's just these ones. And that's what shows instead of showing the entire array at once. And the way that you figure out like how many pages you have total is there's a function called page count, and you have to send it how many items you want to see in each page, and then the entire original array. And so that page count function is up here. And so it will return a variable called page amount, which is going to be stored in your page amount variable. And so the first thing it does, it checks to see if the length of your array is evenly divisible by how many items you want to display. Like if you have 100 items and you want to show 25 per page, that's great. That means it will be 4 pages. But if you have 101 items and you want to show 25 per page, that last item, you need to make sure there's an extra page for it. So if it doesn't divide evenly, I'm using this function, this math function, that will basically, it removes decimal points. So if like it divides like, and it winds up with like 3.5, well, you can't show like 0.5 of a page. That's not a number. And so it will remove the decimal and just give a result of 3, and then add that extra 1 page for the 0.5 or the 1 item it needs to show. But it doesn't need to do that. It doesn't need that extra page if your items do divide evenly. And then it returns that amount here. And then you have to figure out like what numbers need to be shown down here. Like what page numbers are currently showing. And I have a function for that as well. I named it limit page buttons. And it takes in that page amount that we just figured out, and then the current page that you're on. The reason why it takes in the page amount is because whenever you reach the end of this list of pages, right here, you don't want it to keep going on forever. Like you want it to stop at 8. You don't want it to go 9, 10, because it would just be blank, empty pages. Okay, so the limit page buttons, it's actually a little bit complicated. But basically what it's doing is it's seeing what page you're starting at. Like if you're starting at like the very first page, then it has to show different numbers than if you're at the very last page, like which the current one is. And if there's only 2 pages, then it only needs to return 2 numbers. If it returns 3, that wouldn't make sense because there's only 2 pages. And if there's just 1 page, then it just returns the same number. And let's see, and then it returns up. So it populates that array, like I said, and then it, depending on the logic, it returns it. And oh, there's also like a check up here. Like it checks to see if you're on the starting page or the ending page. And it just, let's see, it just basically compares it to the total amount of pages. Which is right here. Like that's what you send into it, the total amount of pages, and it compares it. And if it's equal to the total amount of pages, then it's the last page. And if it's equal to 1, then it's the starting page. So, all right, and let's see, what next? Okay, so for the buttons that I have here, I actually pulled some like Bootstrap example like navigation buttons, and then I kind of like added the logic into them. And that is here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it even says page navigation example. So the first thing it does is it checks to see if your show pages array is not empty, because whenever you very first like start on this page, that show pages array is empty because your entire array is empty. There's nothing there. But then whenever you actually do search, it fills up this array, and it fills up the button array as well. And so those buttons only show if there are actual pages to show. And then I have, let's see. So first let me go up here. Okay, so this right here, this previous button, I have that set to only display whenever you're not on the first page, because if you're on the first page, there's no need to go to like -1, -2. And the same with the end button. Like when you reach the end, that button has to disappear because you don't need to go to like 8, 9, 10. There's no more need for pages. So the way that works is for this one, it checks to see if the current page is not equal to number 1, because if it's on the first page, then you don't need to show this button. And the next button checks to see if the current page, it will only show while the current page is not equal to your total pages. Okay, so I previously had this labeled as final page for this function here and here, but while I was recording this, I decided that next page made more sense to me, so I renamed it to next page. And as I was saying, this button will only display whenever you are not on the first page of your search results. Because if you're on the first page, you don't need the previous button. And this in button here will only show whenever you are not on the last page. Because if your current page is not equal to the last page when it shows. So when the current page becomes equal to the total page amount, then it will no longer show this. And like this, if the current page is 1, it won't show it. So the way this function works is it takes in a Boolean, and if you're not currently on the next page button and the previous page button, then it's false, and it will change your current page to -1. So like if you're on page 2, it'll go back to 1. If you're on page 10, it'll be 9, whatever. And then whenever it is the next page button, that will be true. And so then this first one here will take effect, and it will increase your pages. So if you're on page 5, it'll be 4, And then it has to update your array of page numbers. Like, we'll see that in action again here. 1 second. That will be, click here, and oh look, it shows 1, 2, 3, and it keeps like increasing the page you're currently on, and that will always like show in the middle until you reach the end. And so it updates that with the limit page buttons thing again, and it also has to update, like every time you click a button, it has to re-update your array, like the page array. And so that we have to send it there again to do that. And also I added this so that whenever you click on a button, instead of it staying down here like every time you click and not moving, it like resets the page back up to the top. And that's just, it makes the window scroll back up to position 0, 0. And I actually added that on this page change function as well, which this is how you directly click on each of these numbers. So whenever you click on those numbers, okay, so those numbers are displaying by like iterating through the array show pages that we had set previously. And so for every page of the show pages array, it is showing a button, and that button has the page listed, and then it also, when you click on it, it will change your page. And it sends which page you're currently on here to the page change function. And this checks to see if your current page is less than or equal to the page amount. Because if it's more, something's messed up. So current page, it changes your current page to be the page you clicked on. So right now my current page is 8. When I click this, current page is now 6. And then it again resets the show pages array every time that you click, so that it always has like the most updated like list down here. And then it also updates your array slice again. So your 12 that you want displayed get updated with every click. So it appears to be pages changing. And again, just like with the next page function, the window scrolls all the way back up to the top. I changed the class to whenever the page number down here, if the page number down here is equal to your current page number in your component TypeScript file, if that is true, then it's going to become an active like bootstrap class, and that just like makes the colors change. Like see like the one, and if I click on the three is now. So yeah. Otherwise, like it just they all look exactly the same, and you might not be aware of which page you're on. So, um, I think that's it. I think we went over everything here. Um, I'll post a link to this page a pagination service in GitHub, and I'll link it in Slack and on the description of this video. Let me know if you guys need help. All right, have a good night.